Good afternoon, students. Now, today in this class, we are going to discuss about the continuation of your chapter 7, body fluid and circulation. So, in the previous slides, we have discussed about the body fluid, and that we have covered about what is meant by the blood, what are the different types of body fluids, right? And that you have discussed about plasma, you have discussed about interstitial fluids, and in this class we are going to discuss about the leftover part, the lymph and its function is the only part of body fluid which you have not discussed in that particular video. So today we are going to discuss, and then next to that is another subtopic of your unit 7 is circulation. So here we are going to discuss today about human circulatory system. So in that you are going to discuss about the organ and conduction. In the human circulatory system we are discussing about the structure of your and organization of your heart we are going to discuss, and then we are going to discuss origin and conduction of heartbeat, cardiac cycle, cardiac output and ECG. Okay, so now we will move on to the lymph and its functions. So when you come to this lymph, so mainly 90% of your fluid that leaks from the capillary, okay, it usually sweeps back into the capillaries. Okay, only remaining 10% of the fluid is collected and returned to the blood system by means of a series of tubules, and it is known as lymph. Okay, so when your morning we have discussed that when a capillary blood is able, when a capillaries are moving towards the tissue, 90% of water will be released into the tissue spaces. Again, that same amount of 90% will be recovered from the tissue spaces, but still 10% of the tissue fluids which is been leaked or which is been diffused from the capillary wall into the tissue spaces cannot return back. Still it is remaining there, and these 10% of the blood is being again collected by a separate returning system, that is a series of tubules, and it is known as lymph, okay, or lymphatic vessels. So lymphatic vessels or lymphatics, both are same. These lymphatic vessels or these lymph vessels, they usually collect this 10% of fluid that is being left over from the in between the interstitial cells, in between the tissue spaces. The fluid inside this lymphatic is called as a lymph. So lymphatic vessel contains a fluid called as a lymph. So what exactly this lymphatic system is mainly made up of? Lymphatic system is mainly made up of a complex network of thin-walled ducts, that is, it is mainly made up of lymphatic vessels. Then it mainly consists of filtering bodies like lymph nodes, and it is also consists of a large number of lymphocytic cells. So mainly the lymphatic system mainly consists of these three important components. One is a complex network of thin-walled duct, filtering bodies, that is lymph node and lymphatic cell. All these three constitute to form the lymphatic system. Okay. Now the lymphatic vessels have a smooth wall that run parallel to the blood vessels. Okay, if you look at this one, this is the tissue. Here you may be able to have a movement of the blood walls, and close to this blood wall, the lymphatic vessels will also move parallel with the blood vessels. Okay, so and they run very parallel to the blood vessels, especially in the skin, respiratory and digestive tracts. So what is the role of this lymphatic vessel which is running lymph vessel which is running very parallel to the blood vessel? These vessels serves as a return duct for fluids that are being diffused out from the blood. Okay, it is mainly acting as a duct for collecting the fluids that are being diffused from the capillary wall. Okay, so you can see this one. This is the tissues. They have a tissue spaces here. So the tissue spaces having a 10% of your fluid. These fluids are being again collected by the duct, and it is called as a lymphatic vessels. So you see this one. So these are all the lymphs. Finally, these lymphs are able to enter into these lymph vessels, and then this lymph vessel is able to drain this lymph. So now we'll see how the lymph which is being collected in these lymph vessels, how it is being transported to other parts of your body, or how it has been mixing into the blood, right? Now you can see this one. Lymph fluid must pass through a lymph node before it is returned to the blood. So you see here, once the lymph that is being collected from the tissue fluid, the lymph is called as a tissue fluid. Okay, so lymph is a tissue fluid present inside the lymphatic vessel. So this lymph is usually being collected from these tissue spaces, and once it is being collected, this lymph fluid which is present in this lymph vessel will move through, or it may be able to pass through the lymph nodes. So it will pass through the lymph nodes, and then before returning to the blood, it will pass through the lymph nodes. What is the role of these lymph in the lymph nodes? The lymph nodes usually filter the lymph, or filter the fluid that is entering into the lymph node. Okay, so the entry of this lymph node into the lymphatic vessel, the entry of lymph into the lymph node is usually by means of separate narrow passages called as a sinusoids. Through these sinusoids, the lymph will be entering into the lymph nodes, and then inside the lymph nodes, the lymph will be filtered. Okay, and then if it is having any infectious agents or disease causing agents, these lymph nodes will be usually having the presence of the presence of various T cells, B cells, all these immune cells are present in these lymph nodes. These cells will try to filter the lymph which is entering into the lymph node. So where are these lymph nodes are present? The lymph nodes are present in the neck region, inguinal, and this, what is mean by this? Inguinal. Inguinal means it is just close to your below the neck region. There is both end of your below the neck region, you will be having inguinal regions. Okay, then axillaries, respiratory and digestive tracts. All these areas, they are supplied with the lymph nodes. So the lymph will enter into the lymph nodes before it is mixing into the blood. Okay, the lymph fluid flow out into the lymph node into a large collective duct. So once the lymph fluid is passing able to enter into the lymph node, again the lymph fluid coming out from the lymph node is being collected by a large collecting duct. So it is entering the large collecting duct, and from this large collecting duct, finally the lymph will be drained into a large veins, especially it will be drained into the subclavian veins. Okay, once the lymph is drained into the subclavian veins from this collective duct, finally these subclavian veins drain the lymph into the bloodstream. So this is the way by which the lymph will be able to travel from the tissue spaces into the bloodstream. From the tissue spaces, it is collected as in the form of lymph, and this lymph is entering into the lymph vessel entering into the lymph vessel containing lymph will be traveling into the lymph nodes through the sinusoids. From the lymph nodes, the lymph is be filtered, and then the filtered tissue fluids will be able to pass or will be collected by a large collecting duct. From there, it is able to drain this particular lymph into the subclavian vein, and finally the subclavian vein try to drain the lymph into the bloodstream. Okay, so this is the passage of your lymph in the lymph vessels. As we already discussed, the invading microorganisms which is present in the lymph are being completely filtered in the blood. So finally the lymph that is entering into the blood is completely free from microorganisms. Okay, cells found in the lymphatics are lymphocytes. We already discussed they are B lymphocyte, T lymphocyte, all those cells are been present inside. So what is the main use of this lymph? These lymphocytes which is been traveled back as a lymphatic fluid into the tissue fluids, as well as some fats which are being absorbed in the lacteals of your intestines. They are all been again recycled back into the bloodstream with the help of this lymph. So lymph is having two important functions here. One is the fat which is absorbed in the intestine is by means of lacteals. Okay, the only through the lacteals the fats are being absorbed. Digested lipids like fatty acids and glycerol, they are not been directly absorbed in the small intestine by blood. It is absorbed by the lacteals. And these lacteals will absorb this fat, as well as it will also recycle the lymphocytes from the through the lymph into the bloodstream. So this is what the important functions of your lymph. Next we will discuss about the structure of your human heart. Okay, structure of your human heart we are going to discuss. Human circulatory systems. The structure of heart was described by Raymond D. Vizins in 1706. Okay, human heart typically consists of is mainly made up of Okay, it is mainly made up of a special type of muscles called as a cardiac muscles. So if you look at this heart is usually made up of a special type of muscles. Okay, it is usually made up of a special type of muscles called as a cardiac muscles. So it is situated, this heart is usually situated in the thoracic cavity, and it apex. If you look at this one, this is apex. This apex is slightly, you see here, slightly it is tilted towards the left side of your thoracic area. Okay, the weight of the heart is only 300 grams, and if you look at the size of the heart, it is just when you hold and you keep your fist like this, it is the size of your folded or closed fist. Okay, that is the size of your heart. Okay. When you come to this anatomy of the heart is divided into 4 chambers. Okay, the heart is divided into 4 chambers. You see here, you have a right atrium and you have a left atrium. Okay, and you have a right ventricle and you have a left ventricle. So right atrium, right ventricle, okay, then left ventricle. So heart is divided into 4 chambers. First topmost 2 chambers are called as auricles, the bottom 2 chambers are called as ventricles. The wall of the ventricles, okay, the wall of the ventricles are thicker than the auricles. If you look at this one, the walls are very, very narrow here, but the walls are very thick near the ventricles. So walls are very thick near the ventricles than the auricles. Why? Because of the presence of these papillary muscles. The papillary muscles are present, and these muscles, presence of these muscles gives thicker appearance in the wall of the ventricles. Okay, the heart wall is usually made up of 3 layers. Okay, the heart wall is made up of 3 layers. The outer epicardium, the middle myocardium, and the inner endocardium. Epi means outside. Okay, endo means inside. So heart is mainly made up of, outside of the heart is made up of endocardium, inside of the heart is made up of epicardium, and in the middle the heart usually consists of myocardium. So it is mainly made up of 3 walls. The space present between these membranes are usually filled, okay, are usually filled by fluid, and it is called as a pericardial fluid. Okay, the space that is present between this membrane is called as a pericardial space, and this space is filled with the fluid, and it is called as a pericardial fluid. Now, if you look at these 2 auricles are separated by interauricular septum. So 2 auricles are separated by a septum, and it is called as a interauricular septum. Okay, so for, I think in this diagram they are not given. Okay, we'll see in the next diagram anything is there. Okay, if you look at this one, so this is auricle and this is a ventricle. So here the 2 auricles are separated by interauricular septum. Here you see here, this is called as the interauricular septum. So similarly the 2 ventricles are separated by interventricular septum. See, this is ventricle, right, this is right ventricle, left ventricle, they are separated by a septum, and we call this a interventricular septum. Okay, the separation of chambers above avoids the mixing of the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Why the heart is being divided into 4 chambers, 2 auricles and 2 ventricles? Because the separation of the chambers clearly separates the oxygenated blood from the deoxygenated blood. For the proper maintenance of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, the heart is being separated into 4 chambers. The auricles communicates with the ventricles through an opening called auriculoventricular aperture. So, which is guarded by auriculoventricular valves. So, when auricles are able to open, so the auricles, here. So you can pronounce it as auricles or atrium. Okay, so I'll just pronounce it as auricle. The right auricle able to communicate with the ventricles by means of by means of an opening called auriculoventricular aperture. Aperture means opening, and this opening is usually guarded by a valve, and it is called as auriculoventricular valve. Okay, it is otherwise called as a tricapside valve. So in simple form, the auricles, the right atrium is able to open into the right ventricle by means of a valve called as a tricapside valve. Similarly, the left auricle is able to open into this is the left atrium, right? The left atrium or auricle open into the left ventricle by means of a valve, and it is called as a mitral valve. Okay, is it clear? So here it is a tricapside valve. Why it is called as a tricapside valve? If you just visualize the cross section of this valve, it is having a 3 cups. Okay, it is usually having a 3 cups. So only is called the tricapsid. If you look at the valve of these valves that is present between the left atrium and left ventricle, it is a bicapsid. It is only having only two flaps or two cup-shaped valves. So it is called as a bicapsid valve or mitral valve. Okay. So this is sometimes they used to call it as a arterioventricular valve. Why it is called as arterioventricular? Here it is artery, here it is a ventricle. So in between auricle and ventricle, a valve is present. So only it is called as a arterioventricular valve. Similarly, you have a valve between the atrium and the ventricle. Okay, that is also named as the same one, arterioventricular valve. So both we can simply say it as a cup-seed valve. They just call it as a cup-seed valve. Both the valves are called as a cup-seed valve or auriculoventricular valve. But you want to specify the valves between the right auricle and right ventricle and the left ventricle and the right ventricle, you have to specify the name tricapsid or bicapsid or mitral valve. Okay, next. The valves of the heart allows the flow of blood in only one direction. What is the need of all these valves? These valves will allow the flow of blood only in one direction. For example, if this is an auricle, the blood will move from auricle to the ventricle. Okay, similarly here, if you take a left auricle, from the left auricle, the blood will moving into the left ventricle. Okay, so when you just see that the blood from right atrium reach the right ventricle. So from the right ventricle, again the blood will not able to move back into the atrium. It will move only in one direction. Okay, from this right ventricle, where the blood will be moving it, the blood will be moving into so this is impure blood or deoxygenated blood. So this blood will be, the blood in the right ventricle is a deoxygenated blood. So it will be moving into the pulmonary arteries, maybe left and right pulmonary arteries. So it moves into the left pulmonary artery and the right pulmonary artery through a opening called pulmonary valve. So once it is reaching from auricles to ventricle, the flow of blood is only unidirectional. It will not come in a bidirectional, or it will not flow back. So from the ventricle again it will move in a single direction, unidirectional. It will move towards the pulmonary arteries through pulmonary valve. Similarly, when you look at this left ventricle, the oxygenated blood that is coming from the left atrium, it will reach the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, it will be moving into the aorta. It will be moving into the aorta through a valve called as a aortic valve. So by this, what we can able to understand is that the movement of the blood or the flow of blood is unidirectional, and it is usually maintained by the presence of this tricapsid and bicapsid, pulmonary valve and aortic valve. All these valves usually perform in sending or passing the blood only in one direction. So both these the pulmonary valve and the aortic valve collectively called as a semilunar valve. So you can see here a semilunar valve. So this semilunar valve includes both the pulmonary valve as well as the aortic valve. So they collectively called as a semilunar valve. Why the name is called as a semilunar valve? It is usually having three cups. They are looking as a semilunar in shape. Each and every cup is looking as a semilunar and is usually having three cups. So only we call these valves as semilunar valves. Each semilunar valve is mainly made up of three half moon shaped cups. That's what we have discussed. Okay. So the myocardium of ventricle is thrown into an irregular muscular ridges called as a trabeculae carneae. Trabeculae carneae. What is meant by this trabeculae carneae? So you will be having many irregular muscular ridges. You can see here there are a lot of irregular muscular ridges, and these muscular ridges are called as a trabeculae carneae. You see here, you are able to have a lot of ridges here, no? You see here. Trabeculae carneae, you can see here. These are all the small ridges are present here. These ridges, no? Small one, this one. This one are called as a trabeculae carneae. Okay, these trabeculae carneae, it is modified and it is usually forming a structure called as a cardae tendineae. Cardae tendineae. So you can see here the cardae tendineae is present here. This is a cardae tendineae. These usually originate from these muscular ridges. That is we call it as a trabeculae carneae. From the trabeculae carneae, you may able to get this cardae tendineae. Or if you want to still you want to know very perfectly, this trabeculae carneae develops to form papillary muscles. From the papillary muscles, this cardae tendineae will be get developed. Okay. So what is the role of this cardiac tendineae? The opening and closing of the semilunar valves is usually achieved by this cardiac tendineae. Okay, mainly the opening and closing of semilunar valves are usually achieved by cardiac tendineae. You see here, this is the cardiac tendineae, and here the opening of all these valves, especially this bicapsid valve and the tricapsid valves, they are all usually been achieved. Okay, this is the tricapsid, this is the bicapsid. These valves are being opened and closed only by means of this cardiac tendineae. Okay, cardiac tendineae. Then this cardiac tendineae is attached to its lower part by means of papillary muscles. Okay, that's what we already discussed. This trabecula, from the trabecula corneae, papillary muscles will develop. From the papillary muscles, the cardiac tendineae will be developing it. That means the cardiac tendineae will be attached. The lower part of cardiac tendineae is, one end of the cardiac tendineae is attached to the papillary muscles. Okay, and the topmost layer of your cardiac tendineae will be attached to the valves of your bicapsid and tricapsid valves, and it helps to open and close these bicapsid and tricapsid valves. Heart receives deoxygenated blood from various parts of the body through inferior and superior vena cava that opens into right ventricle, and the oxygenated blood is being received from the lungs and is drained into the left auricle through pulmonary vein. You can see this structure. So the heart is able to receive deoxygenated and oxygenated blood. So this is the heart, the right atrium. The heart is able to receive the deoxygenated blood from this superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. Only through the superior and inferior vena cava, the heart will be able to receive the deoxygenated blood. Okay. Next, there is another one more deoxygenated blood. That is the blood that is produced from the heart is also been released inside this coronary sinuses. Coronary sinuses will receive the deoxygenated blood that is produced in the heart. So all these are able to open in the right atrium. Similarly, the left atrium, you may have a left atrium here. This left atrium will receive the oxygenated blood from the lungs through the pulmonary veins. So the pulmonary veins usually transport the oxygenated blood from the lungs into the right atrium. So in this way, the deoxygenated and the oxygenated blood are transported to the respective right atrium and right right atrium and right ventricle, right atrium and left atrium. Okay, and these bloods again from the deoxygenated blood from the right atrium moves into the right ventricle, and similarly the oxygenated blood from the right left atrium moves into the left ventricle. So that's all about your architecture of your heart. Okay. So next we'll move on to the origin and conduction of your heart. So from these human circulatory systems, what we can understand is heart is divided into 4 chambers. The topmost layer of the heart is called as auricle. The bottommost 2 chambers are called as a ventricle. Okay. So auricles usually opens into ventricle by means of auriculoventricular valves. Okay. Next you have different other than these 2 valves, you have a semilunar valve that includes pulmonary valve as well as the aortic valve. Okay. Next, the blood from the different parts of the body, that deoxygenated blood from different parts of the body are collected by superior and inferior vena cava, and it is being drained into the right atrium. Similarly, the pure blood from the deoxygenated blood from the lungs usually being drained into the left atrium by means of a blood vessels called as a by means of a pulmonary veins. Remember, all arteries carries pure blood, all veins carries deoxygenated blood. All arteries carries oxygenated blood, all veins carries deoxygenated blood. But there are only one exception. For example, if you take all veins are carrying all veins are carrying deoxygenated blood. But one exception here is pulmonary vein. Pulmonary vein usually carries oxygenated blood from the lungs. Similarly, all arteries carries oxygenated blood, but except a pulmonary artery. This pulmonary artery will carry the deoxygenated blood. This is only one arteries and veins that are exceptional in its carrying of blood. Next, we move on to the origin and conduction of your heartbeat. How the heartbeat is usually been conducted. Okay, where it is origin. So if you look at this one, the heart is the human heart is a myogenic. What is the meaning for myogenic? They can able to produce their own spontaneous rhythmic excitation or depolarization. So if you look at the other cells usually needs the excitations from the nerve stimulus, whereas human heart is a myogenic. Myogenic, what is the meaning for myogenic? Because it is usually having a cell called cardiomyocytes. These cardiomyocytes are a special type of cells. They themselves can able to produce spontaneously this rhythmic depolarization, and that initiates the contractions. So they can able to produce self excitations, or they can able to produce the self depolarizations. They don't need they no need any external stimulus. That is why we call as heart as a myogenic in nature. So the sequence of the electric conductions in the heart is usually shown in the figure. You see here this figure, from where you can able to understand how the heart is able to conduct the signals. First, the cardiac cells with the fastest rhythm is called as a pacemaker cells. So these pacemakers are the fastest cells. So they are the one which initiate the depolarization. Okay. Since they determine the contraction rate of entire heart, so these cardiac cells was called as the pacemaker cells. Okay. So you can see this one. This you have a node called as a sinoarterial node. Okay. So you have a sinoarterial node, and this arterial node are usually present on the auricle. Where exactly in the auricle it is present? It is present on the left side of the right corner. So okay, it is present in the right atrium at the right corner. Okay, these sinoarterial nodes are present. This sinoarterial node usually having a special type of cell called as a pacemaker cells. Okay, so it is present here. These pacemaker cells usually initiate the depolarization. It only initiates the excitation of your electrical impulses. Okay. So on the left side of the right atrium is a node called as a auriculoventricular node. So same auricle. So in the right side topmost corner you have a SA node. Similarly, in the same auricle, right auricle, at the left side of your right atrium, that is close to the auriculoventricular aperture, okay, close to the auriculoventricular aperture, you will be having another node called as a AV node. You see here, there is a AV node. Okay. So two special cardiac muscle fibers originate from the AV node. Okay, two special cardiac fibers usually originate from the auriculoventricular node or AV node, and it is called as a bundle of His. Okay, you can see here. From the AV node, two special fibers originate from this AV node. So this is AV node. From there is a two special fibers that originate from this AV node, and we call this as bundle of His. You see, the bundle of His is usually originate from this AV node, and this bundle of His usually travels till the entire the layer of your it travels the entire wall of your ventricles. Okay, that is called as a bundle of, it is traveling up till this end of the ventricle, and when it is able to travel the entire muscles of your ventricles, then we name it as a Purkinje fibers. See here, what is the Purkinje fibers? When the bundle of His is able to run down into the interventricular septum, and these fibers spread into the ventricle, when the same bundle of His is able to spread into the ventricle, we name it as a Purkinje fibers. When it is able to, when you are able to have a fiber that gets splitted from the AV node, then we call it as a bundle of His. Okay, you should know that the difference between SA node, AV node, bundle of His, and Purkinje fibers. Okay. Now, now we have studied about the structure of your the different nodes that are present in your heart. Now we will see how the origin and conduction of the heart usually takes place. The conduction of electrical impulses, how it is taking place, we are going to discuss. So pacemaker is an important cell that is present in the AV node. Okay, that is present in the SA node, and these pacemaker cells produces the excitation through the depolarization of the cell membrane. So the depolarization of the cell membrane takes place through the pacemaker cells. So the early depolarization is very slow and it takes place by sodium influx and the reduction in the potassium efflux. So I will just try to explain. You can see the board. Okay. So first the depolarization, you can see here. The first depolarization usually takes place by means of, so here this is a cell membrane. Okay, so here first the depolarization starts very slowly. So for that we need the influx of potassium. We need the influx of sodium. First sodium will be entering inside the cell membrane, and then the release of the calcium, the release of potassium is been very minimal. Release of potassium will be very minimal, but the release of sodium will be slowly entering inside the cell. So this mechanism of movement of sodium and the less amount of release of potassium causes the initial or the early depolarization. It usually causes the early depolarization. For the early depolarization, you need the sodium to be get influxed and the reduction in the potassium efflux. Okay, so that is what we are discussed here: sodium and potassium influx and exflux. Then once the minimum potential is usually been activated, now the voltage gate of calcium will be get opened, and it causes the calcium to move from the it allows the calcium to move from the outside to the inside the cell. So the calcium, once the potential is initiated, then the calcium Ca plus calcium gated channel gets opened. Okay, it will activate the voltage gated calcium channel. So the calcium channel will be get activated. So there will be more influx of calcium inside the cell. So once the more amount of calcium enter inside the cells, the membrane of the cells inside will be more positive charge, and then now we call these conditions as a depolarization. So first the depolarization starts with the minimum influx of sodium and a slow exflux minimum exflux of potassium. This slow start of depolarization is been favored by the opening of the calcium gated channel. As a result, more amount of calcium will be entering inside the cell, and then the charge of the cell membrane inside the cell will be more positive, and we call these conditions as a depolarization. Okay, there will be a very high depolarization which will takes place because of the more influx of the calcium. Okay, so this results in the condition called as a depolarization. So pacemaker cells first produces excitations through depolarization of the cell membrane. Okay, slowly there will be a rapid depolarization in the pacemaker. So the pacemaker cells slowly it will repolarize slowly via calcium efflux. So once the pacemaker is get depolarized, then again the pacemaker will be repolarized. So how it is able to under repolarized? Then just there will be a opening of the potassium gated channel. This potassium gated channel slowly will be get open, and there will be more efflux of potassium from inside the membrane cell to the outside the cell usually takes place. So in this way the repolarization usually takes place. Depolarization will be takes place by movement of sodium and calcium ions, and repolarization usually takes place by the efflux of potassium ions. Okay. Now this is what the way by which the depolarization and the repolarization usually takes place, and it is usually been done or mediated or initiated by pacemakers. Okay. Next, heartbeat. So how the heartbeat is been started or how it has been initiated. First you should know what is the definition for heartbeat. The rhythmic contraction and expansion of heart is called as a heartbeat. Okay. So it is called as a heartbeat. So the heart will be rhythmically contracting and relaxing or expanding. So it is called as a heartbeat. The contraction of heart is called as a systole. Okay, so when you see this one, so this is the ventricles. So the ventricles will contract. So the contraction of heart is called as a systole. In short form, you can say it as a contraction means yes, CS. So the relaxation of your heart, okay, or the expansion of the heart is called as a diastole. Okay, so you can say it is a what is that? There is a diastole means a relaxed condition. DR, something like that. Whatever the way you can keep it in your mind, you can remember it. Okay, or D, whatever it may be. Okay, CS means contraction, systole. Relaxation means diastole. Or D, whatever it may be, you can keep it in your mind. So the heart normally beats about 70 to 72 times per minute in a human adult. So what is the normal heartbeat of the human? It is about 70 to 72 times per minute. During each cardiac cycle, two sounds are produced in the cardiac cycle. Okay, when a heart is able to undergo and perform a heartbeat, or during each cardiac cycle, two types of sounds are produced, that is lub and tub sound. These two sounds are usually been heard by a means of a by means of an instrument called as a stethoscope. Okay, the first heart sound lub is usually associated with the closing of the tricapsid, and the dub sound usually associated with the closing of the what is that, semilunar valve. Okay, you can see here. So when a heart is able to produce a lub sound, so these two valves, see here, you may have two valves here, that is called as a bicapsid valve and a tricapsid valve. So this is a tricapsid valve and this is a bicapsid valve. So when a heart is able to close, when this valve is able to get closed, this tricapsid as well as this bicapsid or mitral valve, when it is able to get close, it produces a sound and it is called as a lub. Similarly, dub is a sound that is produced when your semilunar valve is another valve. Okay, the semilunar valve includes aortic valve as well as the pulmonary valve. When these two valves are able to close, you may able to get a sound, and we call this as a dub sound. Okay, lub and dub sound. Lub is produced by the closing of the capsid valves, and dub is a sound that is produced by closing of the semilunar valve. Okay, now we will see what is the other difference between the lub and dub sound. Okay, the lub is a sound that is usually having very low or you see the sound which is produced by the lub is very minimal sound, whereas dub is a sound that is produced that will be having a long lasting sound. Okay, you can see from here these sound lub and dub sounds are of very clinically diagnostic significance. So it is mainly, this sound is important for clinical diagnostic significance. Clinically, if they want to diagnose whether your heart is functioning properly or not, they will look for these two sounds. Okay, whether the sounds have been properly heard or not. Increase in the heart rate is called as a tachycardia. When the heart rate is being increased, okay, normal heart rate is only 72 heartbeat per minute, but if it is increased to about 85 or something, then we call this condition as tachycardia. Similarly, a decrease in the heart rate is called as a bradycardia. Okay, so okay, now we have discussed about how the origin and the conduction of your impulses usually takes place. As we already discussed, I'll just give a summary about how this impulses has been get conducted. First, the SA node is usually a site where the initiation of the impulses usually takes place. Electrical impulses are initiated in the SA node, especially the pacemaker. From there, the impulses are being transmitted to the AV node. Okay. Then from the AV node, the impulses are being transmitted to the bundle of His. From the bundle of His, the impulses are transmitted to each and every ventricles through a fiber called as a Purkinje fibers. So in this way, once the impulses are transmitted to the Purkinje fibers, then immediately the ventricles will start contracting. Okay, so once the impulses are received, or once the depolarization usually takes place in these Purkinje fibers, then it is followed by the contraction of your ventricles usually takes place. Okay, next we'll move on to what is meant by cardiac cycle. So what is cardiac cycle? So the event that occur in the beginning of the heartbeat and last until the beginning of the next heartbeat is called as a cardiac cycle. So cardiac cycle is the certain events that is taking place in the heart. Okay, that event that is taking place at the beginning of one heartbeat and the beginning of the next heartbeat. So once the heartbeat is begin, no, after the event that occurs at the beginning of one heartbeat, and whatever the event that is taking place till the next heartbeat starts, no, during this period interval, whatever the events that is taking place, no, we call this as a cardiac cycle. So event that occurs at the beginning of one heartbeat and last until the beginning of next heartbeat, we call it as a cardiac cycle. The overall cardiac cycle, it usually lasts for about 0.8 seconds. One cardiac cycle, it usually lasts for about only 0.8 seconds. So the series of events that is taking place in these cardiac cycles are being divided into 5 phases. Okay, so we are going to discuss about each and every phases. So before going to discuss these phases, you should be very familiar with the auricles, ventricles, valves, everything else. Okay. So what is first phase? It starts with the ventricular diastole. I already told you what is systole, what is diastole. Okay, systole means CS. Okay, simple form to remember. Systole means CS. Systole, yes. So it's a contraction that is called as a systole. Okay, then diastole, D. That means relaxed one. So RD. So diastole means the heart will be in a relaxed state. That is called as a diastole. Okay, when they are able to say diastole means the heart is in a relaxed state. Okay, relaxation state. So when they are able to say ventricular diastole, then what you have to understand? The ventricles are in a relaxed state. That is what you have to understand. Normally, diastole means there is no contraction. The heart is in a relaxed state. When they are using the word ventricular diastole, that means the ventricles are in a relaxed state. For example, if they are using auricular diastole, that means the auricles are in a relaxed state. So whatever the name you are able to see here, you have to think that this particular part, both the ventricles are here in a relaxed state. So that is the meaning you have to understand. So the first phase usually starts with the ventricular diastole. Here the pressure in the auricle increases than the ventricular pressure. So first it usually starts with the first phase 1, ventricular diastole. Here the pressure in the auricles are usually less than the ventricular pressure. The AV valves and the semilunar valves are open and semilunar valves are closed. You see here, I will try to explain this process by using your heart diagram. So first phase is a ventricular systole. The ventricles are in a relaxed state. So during this state, what is happening? Here the auricles are usually filled with the blood. So the auricles are having higher amount of pressure when compared to that of the ventricles. Okay. Then the valves like this mitral valve as well as the another one more valve. Mainly first this valve, this tricapsid valves are usually in open condition, whereas the semilunar valves are in closed condition. So this is what they have discussed in case of your first phase, that is ventricular diastole. Okay. Next phase is what? It is also called as a ventricular diastole. Again it is second phase is what? First phase is ventricular diastole. Next is what? During this ventricular diastole, you know that this AV valve is open, semilunar valve is closed. Since the AV valve is open between the auricle and the ventricle, the blood will be flowing from the auricle into the ventricle. So that is what they are discussed here. Okay, next is what? Arterial systole. So as the name indicates, systole means contraction. Arterial systole means the arteries now is going to get contract. So what will happen? See here, the second phase is a articular systole. Articular systole. Systole means contraction. Articular systole means the articles will contract now. So now the auricles will be contracting. So what will happen when the two auricles are able to get contract? The two valves get open. The oxygenated blood, the deoxygenated blood from the right auricle, which is entering into the right atrium, will move into the right ventricle through the opening of this tricapsid valve. Similarly, the oxygenated blood which is from the right atrium will move to the left ventricle by means of a mitral valve or bicapsid valve. So when the auricles are able to contract, the pressure inside these auricles, both the right and left auricle, will be more. Because of the increase in the pressure, it pushes the blood from the atrium. Okay, both the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood from the both atriums will be pushed down to the respective ventricles because of the auricular systole. Okay, when the auricles are able to undergo contractions, that is the systole, the pressure will be high and the blood will be moving from auricle into the ventricle, respective ventricles. Okay, next, what is the third phase? So how much amount of blood will be moving from the auricle into the ventricle until the end systole. What is that? They use a term called as a end. They use a term. The term is called as a end diastole volume. So what does it mean by end diastole volume? Diastole means ventricles are relaxed. No, when the ventricles are in a relaxed condition, the end diastole volume. So totally, when it is in relaxed condition, how much amount of volume of blood that is to be received? No, till that amount of blood that is received. No, how much amount it is to be received? No, till that the blood will be moving from auricles to the ventricle. That means when the end diastole volume is, for example, it is 120 ml. The end diastole volume of a ventricle is 120 ml, for example. It may be an accurate value or maybe approximate value. Slightly it may differ. So this volume, once it is been till that particular volume is reached, till that particular volume is not been reached, till that there will be movement of blood from auricle into the ventricle. Once the ventricles reach that end diastolic volume, then movement of blood from auricle to ventricle will be stopped. Okay, so this end diastolic volume is related to the length of the cardiac muscle fiber. More the muscle gets stretched, greater will be the end diastolic volume and the stroke volume. Okay, so they are trying to say here that when the the stretching of muscle is being very higher now, automatically the contraction of these ventricles will also be very higher. As a result, the when the muscle is able to stretch more, so there will be more space for the ventricles to occupy. There is the volume of the ventricle will be very high since the muscles are getting stretcher. So when the volume of the ventricle is high, more amount of blood will be consumed. So that means higher the stretching of the ventricle, higher will be the volume of the ventricle, though higher will be the end diastolic volume. Okay, when the end diastolic volume will be higher, then it is followed by contraction of ventricle. That time what will happen? More amount of blood will be pumped from the ventricle into the auricle. That is called as a stroke volume. It is the amount of blood that is pumped from the ventricle into the auricle. That is called as a stroke volume. So higher the muscles of ventricle stretches, higher the volume of ventricle, higher the volume of end diastolic volume, and higher volume is present in the ventricle. When it is able to undergo contraction, higher will be the stroke volume. So that is what they are trying to discuss here. Okay, next, now in the second phase we have discussed that the ventricles are being filled with this respective oxygenated and deoxygenated. Next we'll move on to the third phase, that is ventricular systole. So during this ventricular systole, what will happen? The ventricles, as the name indicates a systole, the ventricles will contract. So when the contraction of ventricle takes place, so what will happen? The two valves which is already been get opened, okay, the two valves will be get closed. You see here, the two valves, no? So third phase is a ventricular systole. The ventricles are contracting. So the two valves, tricapsid and bicapsid valve will be get closed. These two valves will be get closed. Okay. So then, because of this contraction, the pressure in the ventricles will be increased. That is the third phase. Okay. Ventricles able to undergo contraction, that is ventricular systole. So as a result, the two valves will be get closed. Since the two valves will be closed and the ventricles are contracting, the pressure inside the ventricles will be very high, and this pressure in the ventricles will try to move for the next phase, that is called as again it is a ventricular systole. Again still it is a ventricular systole, that is a fourth phase. So pressure, the ventricular systole, what will happen? It will pushes the semilunar valves to open. It will pushes the semilunar valves to open, and then the blood will be ejected from the respective ventricles into the pulmonary and aortic valves. Okay, that is a fourth phase. So third and fourth phase is a ventricular systole. In third phase ventricular systole, the contraction of your ventricles takes place during the ventricular systole. As a result, the closing of the AV valves, that is by a tricapsid and bicapsid valve will takes place. And then again there will be ventricular systole. During this condition, what is here? Ventricular ejection. What is the meaning for the ventricular ejection? So closing of these valves will cause us an increase in the pressure. Okay, this increase in the pressure will allow valve, that is a semilunar valves to get open, okay, and the blood will be ejected from the ventricles into the respective arteries. So we call this as a ventricular systole. So this point is called as a systolic volume. We call this end of this point as a end of systolic volume, ESV. So what is the meaning for the end of systolic volume, ESV? So that means it is the amount of blood that is usually been present after the ventricles are been able to eject the blood. The blood which is been ejected from the ventricle is called as a stroke volume. After the ejection of blood from the ventricle, the remaining blood which is remaining in the ventricle is called as a end of systolic volume. So this is the fourth phase. So once the blood has been ejected from this ventricle, then the last phase is a ventricular diastole. So it is similar to that of your first phase. So during this what will happen? Now once the ventricles has been finished is systolic way, now it is ventricles are slowly in a diastolic way, it will become relaxed one. As a result, what will happen? The pressure inside the ventricles will be very less, whereas the pressure in the in the respective arteries, there will be very high, and these pressure in the arteries will close the semilunar valve. Okay, again the heart returns to the first phase 1. Again the ventricle will be in a relaxed phase. Again the blood will be moving from the respective articles into the ventricles through the opening of the tricapside and bicapside valve, and then slowly the semilunar valve also will be get closed. Okay, that is the next cycle will be starting. So cardiac cycle is an event that usually starts with the beginning of this first heartbeat and last until the beginning of the next heartbeat. So it usually starts with the 5 phases. First phase is a relaxation, that is a relaxation of your ventricle, that is called as ventricular diastole. Second phase is the contraction of your auricles, that is called as auricular systole. So blood will be moving from auricles to the ventricles. Third phase is the ventricular systole. The blood ventricles will undergo contraction. So blood from the ventricles will be the valves of the AV as well as the valves of AV will be get closed during this ventricular systole. In the fourth ventricular systole, the opening of the semilunar valve usually takes place, and the blood will be moving from ventricles into the respective arteries. And the fifth phase, the same ventricular ventricular diastole. Ventricles will be relaxed state, semilunar valves will be get closed, again the AV valve will be get open. So in this way the cardiac cycle will be functioning it up. Okay. Next is what is meant by cardiac output. What is cardiac output? It is the amount of blood that is pumped out by the ventricle per minute is called as a cardiac output. So what is cardiac output? It is the total amount of blood that is being pumped from the heart during one heartbeat. No, during 1 minute. So in 1 minute there are 70 times the heart will be beating it. Okay. So during 1 minute, how much amount of blood that is being pumped by the heart is called as cardiac output. So this cardiac output is directly proportional, or it is been usually given by an equation, that is CO, cardiac output, is equal to heart rate into SV. Okay. So just you can see this board, you can able to understand. So basically, so the cardiac output is equal to heart rate into stroke volume. So heart rate is usually 72 times heart will beat per minute. You have to multiply this one into stroke volume. The stroke volume is approximately is about 120 ml. So when you multiply 72 into 120 ml, it will be approximately 7 liters of blood. Okay, nearly 7 liters of blood will be pumped per minute. Okay, that is the thing you have to understand. So you can just the value may slightly differ. You multiply the 72 into 120 ml, whatever the value that is comes, that much amount of liters of blood that will be pumped per minute during your cardiac output. So you should be familiar with what is meant by stroke volume, what is heart rate. Heart rate is the number of times the heart beats per minute. Stroke volume is the amount of blood that is being ejected from the ventricles during one contraction. Okay, so it is approximately 120 ml. So you have to multiply this 120, stroke volume, how much time, how much volume of blood that is been pumped during one contraction, that is 120 ml into 72, that will give the cardiac output. Okay. The stroke volume represents the difference between the EDV and the ESV. So EDV means you should know what is meant by EDV, and you should know what is meant by ESV. So EDV means it is the amount of blood that is collected in the ventricles during diastole. That is the amount of blood, okay, that is present in the ventricle. Amount of blood that is present in the ventricle is called as a EDV, end diastolic volume. When the ventricle is in a diastole relaxed condition, what is the amount of blood that is present? That is called as EDV. Then what is meant by ESV? ESV means it is a volume of blood remaining in the ventricles after contraction. So here the volume of blood that is remaining, then ventricles will be contracting it, blood will be pumped out, the remaining amount, how much amount of volume of blood is present in the ventricle, that is called as a ESV, remaining blood in the ventricle. Remaining blood in the ventricle is called as a ESV. So when you want to know the stroke volume, okay, stroke volume is equal to end diastolic volume minus end stroke volume. That is the value of your stroke volume. Stroke volume is equal to end diastolic volume minus end systolic volume. That will give the stroke volume. Okay. So according to Frank Starling law of the heart, the critical factor controlling the SV is the degree to which the cardiac muscle cells are stretched just before the contract. So according to the Franklin Starling law of heart, the critical factor for controlling the stroke volume is the stroke volume is the amount of blood that is being pumped during one contraction, that is stroke volume. It is directly depends upon the stretching of the cardiac muscles. Cardiac muscle cells are stretched just before they contract. How much the cardiac muscles are get stretched, that much is mainly depends upon that the stretching of this cardiac muscle is directly determining the amount of stroke volume, or directly the stroke volume depends on the stretching of the cardiac muscles. Like that they are trying to say. Okay. For example, if a stretching of your cardiac muscles increases, okay, there will be increase in the stroke volume. Stretching of your cardiac muscles decreases, then there will be a decrease in the stroke volume. So this is what they are trying to discuss here. According to Franklin Starling law of heart, the critical factor controlling the stroke volume is the degree to which the cardiac muscle cells are stretched just before they contract. Okay. The most important factor for stretching of cardiac muscle is the amount of blood that is returning to the heart and distending its ventricles, that is venum return. Okay. So then there is another important factors they are trying to add in this. So increase in the stretch causes increase in stroke volume, decrease in the stretch causes decrease in the stroke volume. Increase in stretch is in turn is been depends upon the amount of the blood that is returning to the ventricles. Higher amount of blood in the ventricle, okay, increased amount of blood is usually returning into the ventricles. Okay, there will be increase in the stretching. Okay, so there will be increase in the stroke volume. Lower amount of blood is been entering into the, for example, you will be having a lower amount of blood that is being entering into the ventricles. Okay, then there will be a lower amount of stretching. Higher the blood able to enter into the ventricle, higher will be the stretching. Only lower amount of blood is entering, lower will be the stretching. So lower the stretching, lower will be the stroke volume. Is it clear? This is the factors they are trying to discuss with respect to your paragraph in your cardiac output. Okay. So finally they conclude that during vigorous exercise, when you are able to do vigorous exercise, the SV or the stroke volume may be double as a result of venous return. So when you are able to do more amount of exercise, there will be high amount of oxygen will be taken into the cells. So there will be a rapid metabolism takes place, more amount of carbon dioxide will be released outside. So this is what happening in your cell. So as a result, what is happening here? So the blood will be returning to the ventricles. The blood will be returning to the ventricles in a higher amount. As a result, the stroke volume will also be doubled during the time of exercise. That is what they are trying to say. So, because basically the heart is a double pump. Okay, each side is dependent on the other. So, if you take a right auricle and right ventricle, it usually depends on the left auricle and the left ventricle. If any one of the part is not working properly, it will impair the functions or it will affect the functions of the other side. Okay, so they both cannot work on independently with each other. They are dependent upon each other. So the left side of the heart fails, it results in pulmonary congestion, and if the right side of the heart fails, it results in peripheral congestion. Okay, so that's what you have to understand. So for the proper functioning of your heart, your both side of heart should be performed in an equal manner. Frank-Starling effect protects the heart from abnormal increase in the blood. Okay, this is what the effect that usually says that they usually protect the blood from abnormal increase in the blood. Okay, so up to this cardiac output we have discussed. So the blood pressure, ECG, okay, and regulation of heartbeat, all those things we will see in the next class. Okay, thank you.